Hello. In this presentation, I will present you a study conducted by Institut negaWatt under the direction of Secours Catholique Caritas France for the social energy renovation project. So in summary, first, I will go on a reminder of the methodology used and that we have crafted for this study. Then I'll give you some feedbacks that we had from the non-profit players that we had the chance to interview to get some qualitative elements on the renovation problems and issues for these players. Then I will do a synthesis of the surfaces of buildings to be renovated given by our methodology and with the perimeter of the study. And then I will go on to some financial aspects because we also had the chance to interview some financial sector players like banks and public agencies. And then I will do a summary of the recommendations that we give for the study and for the followings of the social energy renovation project. So the objectives of this study was the assessment of the need for renovation of non-profit third sector real estate stock on the basis of an estimate of this stock. So first, it was we had to make a modeling tool to be able to estimate this stock of buildings and evaluate the areas to be renovated and which kind of renovations had to be done of these surfaces. Also, we had to provide useful information for the development of the financial instrument. And for that, we proposed a generic cost for the works to be done, and in order to provide that to financial actors and get some feedbacks from them. So the global methodology is presented in this slide. So the two starting points available for us in France are the number of jobs by activities in the association sector. I say the associations because we decided to have this scope for the study because associations represent 80% of the social and solidarity or non-profit sector in France, and the data available are quite detailed. So for these associations, we have the share of each activities, and another data available in France is the number of buildings of each category of the tertiary sector in general in France. So we had to cross these two data to obtain a surface number of each type of tertiary building for each category of activity of the associations. This methodology is called surface segment estimation, and we have the chance because the available data related to the building stock of the tertiary sectors contains their construction period and helps us to give an estimate of the renovation work and work packages that can be done for each type of buildings. And we will see later how we used that. At the beginning of this study, we interviewed some organizations that are representative from the sector by example, social housing organizations, social action and charity, and teaching organization, because they represent the three biggest type of activity in the association sector in France. And the key feedbacks we could get from them on a qualitative level is first that energy is a growing topic. They are more and more aware of the importance of renovation and the cost it implies. And but they face a lack of coordination. Some organizations have referrals on the subject, but this is still rare, and the level of engagement on the issue may vary from region to region within a single network. They could benefit from more organized long-term planning and mutual knowledge of available funding mechanism, by example. They also told us that there are many measures to help organizations, and there is a complexity to know how to finance with the cost that is always a big constraint. So the biggest constraint that prevent them from investing in renovation is the cost, and then the complexity of the mechanism. And then another feedback we could get is that the eventual renovation projects can represent benefits for the users and beneficiaries of the structures of the organizations, because it usually goes with a better comfort, and especially for social housing, it could be an argument for promote fundraising, by example, to promote renovation, that saying that it will get better comfort for the beneficiaries. So let's move on to the findings in terms of surfaces to be renovated. So the energy characteristics, as I said before, are given by the construction periods available. The organism in France that provide this data is the CEREN, and we don't have a specific data for the associative park. Neither we had that for the non-profit. The data we have is general, so we have data for each branch of the tertiary, like administration, teaching and research, etc. But we divided these quantities with the data available on employees and volunteerings. So this is in this table an example of the repetition, the share of each kind of construction period, and we use these construction periods to transform that in terms of need of renovation. By example, the oldest buildings need complete renovation, and the most recent, after 2012, will only benefit from a partial renovation or just the work on the heating system and ventilation. So here we can see the results for the association park of buildings. So 53% of the buildings are in the category of missing insulation. That means that there is almost no insulations. Then we have 20% of the park where the thermal insulation is insufficient. Then 17% of the park is already sufficiently isolated and already performant. And then we have 10% that we estimate that it can't be renovated for heritage characteristics to be preserved, and it's usually this percentage that we can't renovate. On the right, the diagram showed the mix in terms of heating systems in these buildings, because it's also data available. So the mix before renovation is usually that. So 46% is gas. Then we have electricity for 30%, and then fuel, heavy fuel for 14%. Here you can see the amount of renovable surfaces following our hypothesis and the methodology. The difference between the blue and orange bars is that the perimeter is limited to the associations on the one hand, and on the other hand, also limited to the buildings they own, because in the opposite case, it's the owner organization, often the community or the state, who will be responsible for leading and financing the renovation operations. And so we can see that 9, 10, and 11 are the biggest sectors. And as I said before, it's social action and charity, and teaching and research, and then social housing. So the amount of renovable surfaces is around, you can see it's in millions of square meters. So it's like 5 million square meters for the social action of complete renovations, and then 5 millions also for teaching, and 2 or 3 million square meters for social housing. In terms of complete renovation, then the light orange are partial renovation, and the more lighter orange is represent the changing of the heating system and ventilation. Then we transform these areas to be renovated into an amount of financial needs based on some feedbacks we have from a French organism that is called CEREMA, which is a public center of expertise and study on the questions of buildings and transitions, and also from the different missions we have in Institut negaWatt, because we help some building park owners to plan their transition and renovations operations. And so with these feedbacks, we estimate that the energy cost of complete renovation to the level low energy building, that is called in French BBC, bâtiment basse consommation, is around 600 euros per square meters. But this cost is of purely energy work and represent just a part of an overall cost, including bringing up to the new standards, other rehabilitation works, and relocation of activities temporarily. And so we estimate that the overall cost is between 1.2 and 2 times the energy cost. And so on the diagram you can see an estimation of the level of renovation expected, and it's related to the French tertiary decree that is currently in application, and that demand to the tertiary buildings some levels of renovation and energy performance in three levels of time. So in 2030 it's expected to be to gain 40% reduction in terms of energy consumptions. In 2040 it's minus 50% of consumptions, and in 2050 it's minus 60% of reduction. And so our aim was to estimate the need to get to the biggest level of reduction, which is so the one that needs 600 euros per square meters investment. We also will see in the next slide how it implies how it is linked to the typology of buildings we saw before. So we previously saw that we had some data available of the construction period in terms of time, and that we linked that to energy performance. And so we had three main types of buildings: the one that needed complete renovation, the ones that needed partial renovations, and the one that needed just the renewal of the heating and ventilation systems. And so we divided this we linked these three typologies into an energy cost. So we can find again the 600 euros per square meter for a complete renovation, and then for the partial renovation it's 300 euros, and then the heating system replacement is 130 euros per square meters. In the next three slides we show the amount of financing needed to achieve the volume of renovation needed in the three categories. So for the complete renovation at low consumption level, then for the partial renovations, and then for the replacement of heating system and ventilation. In conclusion, on the financial aspects, we estimate that on a 50 million square meters park that could be renovated and that is not insulated, our scope was the 33% of these buildings, because it's the number of buildings that are owned by associations. So it represents 14 million square meters that would benefit from a large-scale energy renovation by 2050. And it represents an average amount of operations that could be close to 50,000 until 2050. And from this amount, we must deduce the aids available in order to estimate the remaining cost for the structures in question. because some structure can benefit from other helps from the government or some agencies, because they are part of the social sector, and some of them are part of the medical sector, so they can benefit from other um, other aids on investment. So the total amount to be financed is around 9 billion euros, assuming this cost that we presented before, and the total full cost would be around 17 billion, because as I said before, the 9 billion would only take into account the energy cost of the operations. First of all, we identified two main limitations for the financing of these operations. The first is that there is no dedicated system addressing not only renovation, but renovation for the non-profit sector. We have systems of helps for the non-profit sector, but not for renovation, and systems to help renovation, but not dedicated to the non-profit sector. The second one is the complexity and the multiplicity of approaches. Several measures exist, several types of aids, but not as we would like to see in this social energy renovation project, a main and central hub for the renovation for the non-profit. So in this last part, I will go on with presenting the 10 proposals we did in the report of this study for setting up a dedicated measures for financing renovation in the tertiary sector of the associations. The first one, the first proposal is to continue the analysis with financing organizations and to evaluate the conditions of the success of putting into place a real estate company dedicated to renovation for the associations. It means that associations could delegate the charge of renovating their buildings and delegating the management of their buildings to a real estate company that would take into charge a large amount of buildings and benefit from financing measures and a kind of energy management engineering and financing engineering for that. The second proposal is the testing interacting to renovate. Interacting is an internal financing mechanism used by public institutions to fund energy efficiency renovations without using external loans, using savings generated from reduced energy consumption, and investing these savings for a self-sustaining funding cycle. And this system is tested by Banque des Territoires to fund energy operations in the collectivities and public sector, and it could switch to associations as test. And Banque des Territoires said it was interested in testing that in this sector. The third one is evaluating with the Banque des Territoires again the possibilities of reproducibility of subordinated loans and equity securities, financing mechanism. The fourth one is more in terms of support for the voluntary sector and associations to get access to European funds through a support system dedicated to the sector and the simplification of procedures. And the proposal is currently being put forward by the Economic Affairs Committee of the National Assembly in France for the finance project of 2025. Proposal 5 is testing with banking institutions the possibility of simulating improvements in the operating account, taking into account the savings achieved by an energy saving operation, energy renovation operation, and taking that into account to more to size the loan more closely to the financial results given by the operation. That means today the benefits given by an operation in terms of energy savings is not taken into account when a bank is making its loan to the associations. I didn't mention it, but these proposals come from 4 interviews with banking organizations in the public domain and also in the private domain. And so these proposals are based on measures that could be put into place, and some organisms told us that they would be able to test that on a bunch of test projects. Now, Proposal 6 is to examine the bank's interest in participating in the additional cost that a project management assistance would represent. It means that it could secure the loans to have a project management assistance dedicated to energy renovation, and the bank could participate to this additional cost because it would secure more the operation of renovation, and it could mean that it would facilitate the ability for associations to get some financements. Proposal 7 is to test a new tarification for the loans when a renovation project take advantage of the project to install renewable energy systems and to take into account the revenues guaranteed by the production of energy into the solvability of the project. The proposal 8 is really to get into a reflection with some public financial partners such as BPI France and the Caisse des Dépôts to promote development of access to public funds and to help structure a guarantee fund mechanism in order to have a long-term bank financing at reduced rates. It's really the aim of the social energy renovation projects. It's to have a structured guarantee fund and some structured as well mechanisms and help systems to support energy renovation for the sector of associations and non-profit. And those two last proposals really are in the center of the subject of social energy renovation project. The idea is to really think of a hub that would address the problems and the issues of the renovation for the non-profit sector, and so to build a structural system that make it possible to massively renovate, and eventually the creation of an integrator operator for the renovation of the associative sector, and to think of how it could be financed. We can use all the ideas presented before to draw the scope of this potential future organism. Then we also gave some organizational guidelines for the associations sector, not only on the financial plan, but in order to be more efficient in planning the renovations. So the first guideline is to get to have a dedicated project management support. It could be like a company recognized by founders, like banks. As I said before, the association could benefit from being supported and helped by a company that provide project management support for the renovation projects. And this company could be referenced and recognized by the banks, and the banks could also pay the additional cost of this support, because it would guarantee the feasibility of the renovation projects. The other point is better planning and harmonized renovations. That means putting into place a dedicated governance in the network of associations managed by the player. Second point is to do a real estate inventory and a quantification of impacts of the renovation on this park of buildings. We provide a warning there. It's to be aware of systematic and costly audits. It's not useful to do a systematic audit of the building park, but it could be more relevant to just focus on the buildings with a better potential. And so with real management on the building park, the association can benefit from cost reducement. The third point is then to study and prioritize actions of renovations. So once the park is better known, the point is to plan the renovations, and it could be done by a real estate master plan focused on energy. It can be integrated in a global management plan of the building park, and to integrate the energy issue into that. And the last point is to go to the implementation of this action plan. So it's really a way of managing building park that the associations sector do not really know often, and that is why there is a need for support and the establishment of an organism that can take over this work, or like as we mentioned, it could be done by a real estate public company. but at least to provide support for this sector on the management of the energy management of a building park. And for the continuation of the project, we proposed to the players interviewed to bring up buildings with potential renovation projects that could serve as tests for future renovation support devices that the SER project seeks to put in place. The selection criteria are as follows. It has to be of the more represented sectors, so the teaching, social action, humanitarian, and then the social housing. And the data had to be available, like energy consumption, the opportunity and the projected renovation. And also it had to be a real project that could be put into place like in the next year, by example. And this has led to the collection of a first list of buildings, which in collaboration with financial institutions could serve as pilots for experimenting innovating financing schemes. Well, that's it for this presentation. I hope it was clear enough and not too much summarized. You can find the results in detail in the report we did for Secours Catholique Caritas France for the SER project. And I hope this will serve to go to the setting up of this hub and support for energy renovation projects for the non-profit sector in Europe.